You could hear it in his voice. Super slow, mate. We can't do any overtaking. It sounded like a small complaint at first, just frustration after another tough lap. But inside the cockpit, what Lewis Hamilton felt in Austin wasn't just a minor hiccup. It was a moment where instinct collided with data, and only one of them was right. From the outside, you saw him lift through turn 5, dab the brakes, and lose momentum. But from the driver's seat, something went wrong. In a flash, 120 kilowatts of electrical power, nearly 160 horsepower, just vanished. Imagine that. You're flat out in a car built for perfect hybrid harmony, and suddenly half of its electric heart just dies mid-corner. The braking balance shifts forward, the rear goes light, and your muscle memory stops making sense. Hamilton backed off, checked his mirrors, tested the throttle. Nothing. The power came back unevenly, like a heartbeat skipping a beat. And then came the radio call that changed everything. Sensors show nothing abnormal. Think about that. You're Lewis Hamilton, feeling the car go unstable beneath you, but the data says everything's fine. That single sentence from his engineer, Riccardo Adami, hit harder than the power loss itself. Because if the sensors can't say it, how do you prove it's real? And that's where this whole story begins. Not with a technical glitch, but with a question of trust between man and machine. If you love this kind of behind-the-scenes F1 breakdown, make sure you subscribe and enable the notification bell. We're pushing toward 2,000 subscribers, and your support really helps. So, quick poll for you. When it comes to moments like this, who do you trust more, the driver's instinct or the team's data? Let me know in the comments. Because next, we'll break down exactly what the telemetry missed and how a fraction of a second changed everything for Ferrari and Hamilton. Here's where things start to get really interesting. After the race, everyone at Ferrari insisted nothing unusual had happened. But when engineers later dug through the raw telemetry, they discovered something that changed the whole picture. A 0.3 second drop in MGUK deployment while Lewis's throttle was still fully open. Now, 0.3 seconds doesn't sound like much, right? But in Formula One terms, that's a small eternity. During that tiny window, the electric motor that should have been feeding power to the rear wheels completely disengaged. To you and me, it's the difference between a smooth punch of acceleration and a sudden stumble that throws your rhythm off mid-corner. For a driver like Hamilton, who builds his precision on feel, that kind of interruption is catastrophic. So when he said, "It feels like I hit something," he wasn't exaggerating. His car literally lost part of its drive, a momentary amputation of traction that no sensor caught in real time. Ferrari's telemetry lagged by about 0.8 seconds between turns 4 and 6, meaning what Hamilton experienced, the engineers didn't even see until after it was already over. On the onboard footage, you can see how he immediately adjusts. His hands tighten, steering inputs get sharper, and the throttle trace shows a tiny hesitation before reapplying power. That's muscle memory taking over, a champion adapting on instinct. But back on the pit wall, everything looked calm. The data graphs were flat. The system said nominal, and that's the real problem. When you're driving on the limit at 250 kilometers per hour, you rely on the team to be your second set of eyes. When the system says everything's fine, but you feel that it's not, who do you believe? This is where modern F1 gets complicated. Cars are no longer just machines, they're rolling computers, thousands of sensors, endless data streams, algorithms predicting behavior before the driver even reacts. But that same sophistication can create a dangerous illusion that data is absolute and the driver's instincts are secondary. Lewis Hamilton's entire career has been built on the opposite idea, that a driver can sense problems before the data even blinks. And Austin was proof. So, let's make this personal. If you were in Hamilton's shoes, flying into turn 5, car suddenly losing balance, but the team says, no issues detected, would you back off or push through it anyway? Drop your answer below. Back off or push through? And if you're enjoying this kind of detailed F1 analysis, hit like and make sure you're subscribed to help us reach 2,000 subscribers. Your support means a lot, and it helps us keep bringing you these deep dives into the real stories behind the race. Because next, we're going to switch sides and step into the shoes of Riccardo Adami, the man whose calm voice said, "Sensor show nothing abnormal." You'll see why that one sentence sparked a storm inside Ferrari. When the race ended and Hamilton climbed out of the car, he wasn't angry. Not yet. He was confused. He knew something had gone wrong, but the team's radio messages didn't add up. Ferrari engineers, on the other hand, were already scrambling through gigabytes of data. What they found made the silence inside the garage almost unbearable. Riccardo Adami, Hamilton's race engineer, was sitting behind the pit wall monitors, rewinding the telemetry over and over again. Every time he zoomed in, he saw the same thing, a blip in the torque delivery right before the MGUK power dip. It was short, subtle, and easy to miss. But when he cross-checked it with Hamilton's throttle trace and steering input, it lined up perfectly with that "I hit something" moment. Adami looked over at the systems engineer. "Did we log any software intervention here?" he asked. The reply was just a quiet shake of the head. No code faults, no thermal warnings, nothing. Everything appeared clean. That's when the room went silent. Because if there was no software issue, no overheating, and no human error, then what was it? The uncomfortable answer: a configuration mismatch in the car's pre-race setup. Something Hamilton himself had questioned before lights out. Earlier that morning, he'd asked about the rear differential calibration. The engineers had reassured him it was balanced and ready, but deep inside the system, a single parameter had been left on a development mode, the kind of setting used during simulations, not races. That meant his rear axle was reacting milliseconds slower than Leclerc's, especially under high load. And that's why the onboard data fooled everyone. The system saw correct values because it was reading from a mode designed for testing, not competition. When Hamilton heard about this later, he reportedly just nodded and said, "That's what I felt." No anger, just confirmation. He knew his instincts had been right all along. Imagine being in that room. Dozens of engineers, high-performance computers humming, everyone staring at a problem that shouldn't even exist in a team like Ferrari. The main tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Now here's where I want your take. Do you think Ferrari should have owned up publicly to that mistake? Or was it smarter to keep it behind closed doors to protect the team's image? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious where you stand on this. And hey, if you're enjoying this story so far, make sure you're subscribed and have that notification bell on. Your support helps us keep growing toward our goal of 2,000 subscribers and bring you the stories other F1 channels won't touch. Next, we'll explore the fallout, how the revelation spread inside Ferrari, and how a few quiet words from Charles Leclerc made everything even messier. By Monday morning, the story had already started spreading quietly through Ferrari's corridors in Maranello. Someone had leaked fragments of telemetry data to a few trusted insiders, and the whispers were fast becoming an open secret. Hamilton's setup wasn't identical to Leclerc's. Charles Leclerc, ever the diplomat, didn't say much publicly, but behind closed doors, he made a comment that hit everyone in the room like a thunderclap. During a debrief session, when an engineer mentioned that Hamilton's car had a development configuration mismatch, Leclerc leaned forward and said softly, "That explains why my rear was more stable than his." The room went dead silent. Nobody wanted to interpret that sentence out loud, but the implication was clear. Leclerc had enjoyed a small but decisive set-up advantage. Whether it was intentional or not didn't matter. The fact that it happened at all was a breach of Ferrari's internal fairness policy, especially in a season where image and trust were already fragile. Adami, Hamilton's engineer, reportedly defended his driver immediately. He reminded everyone that Hamilton had raised concerns before the race and that the setup differential wasn't driver approved. The response? A few nods, some silence, and an unspoken agreement to move on. But you know how F1 works. Nothing really stays buried. By Wednesday, Italian media outlets had caught wind of inconsistencies in car calibration between Ferrari's drivers, and social media exploded with speculation. Words like favoritism, sabotage, and bias started trending alongside Hamilton's name. Inside Ferrari, it created an invisible divide. On one side, the engineers who saw Hamilton's instincts as proof of his genius. On the other, those who believed it was a simple human oversight blown out of proportion. Team morale dipped, and even Leclerc was said to be uncomfortable with how the story was being framed, as if he'd personally benefited from something unfair. Now, here's what really captures the emotion of this moment. Hamilton never once went public about it. No cryptic social media posts, no subtle digs in interviews. He just said, "The team knows what happened, and we move forward." Classic Hamilton, calm under pressure, confident in silence. But fans didn't stay silent. Forums, Twitter threads, and fan accounts were lighting up with theories. Some even claiming the setup issue was intentional to favour Leclerc at Ferrari's home stretch. So I want to hear from you. Do you think this was just a genuine mistake, or something deeper inside Ferrari's structure? Vote in our poll right now. Simple oversight or intentional setup bias? And tell me why in the comments. And if you've been enjoying how we're peeling back these hidden layers of the story, remember to subscribe and enable the bell. We're pushing to reach 2,000 subscribers, and your click helps us share more of these behind-the-scenes investigations that most fans never hear about. We'll talk about what happened next. The private meeting between Hamilton, Vasseur, and Ferrari's technical leadership, and the surprising outcome that could reshape how the team handles driver equality in 2026. Ferrari headquarters, 9 a.m. A closed-door meeting between Lewis Hamilton, team principal Frederic Vasseur, and the technical leadership. No cameras, no press, no PR spin. Just 3 hours of uncomfortable honesty. According to people close to the team, Hamilton arrived calm but direct. He had his race notebook in hand. Yes, the same one he's kept since his McLaren days. He opened it to the page marked Austin GP and went straight to the point. This isn't about blame. It's about trust. If I feel something's wrong with the car, I need to know the team believes me, even when the sensors don't. Those words reportedly hit Vasseur hard. He'd been juggling internal politics, development plans for 2026, and the challenge of balancing two elite drivers without creating tension. But this was different. This was about the team's credibility. The engineers presented their findings, the mismatched setup, the telemetry delay, and the software mode that had gone unnoticed in pre-race checks. It wasn't sabotage, but it was negligence. A missed cross-check that had compromised one of the most precise drivers on the grid. Vasseur didn't hide his frustration. He reminded everyone that Ferrari's goal for 2026 isn't just to build a fast car, but to rebuild trust. He ordered an immediate review of all pre-race procedures and introduced a new policy. Both drivers would now have mirrored configuration sign-offs before each session, with Hamilton and Leclerc personally approving every key system calibration. After the meeting, Hamilton reportedly thanked Vasseur privately. He told him, "Mistakes happen. What matters is how we fix them." And that's the part that stuck. The sense that even after all the drama, Hamilton wasn't looking backward. He was already thinking about the next race, the next lap, the next fight. Inside the team, the mood shifted. Engineers started double-checking every detail, Communication lines became tighter, and for the first time in months, the garage began to feel unified again. Even Leclerc, who had been quietly uncomfortable through the whole ordeal, reached out to Hamilton after the meeting. A brief handshake that said everything words couldn't. Of course, Ferrari didn't release an official statement. They didn't need to. But the message from inside was clear. This was a turning point. So here's the big question for you. Do you think this meeting truly fixed Ferrari's internal issues? Or is it just another temporary truce before tensions rise again? Let me know in the comments. I'll be reading your takes after this video goes live. And if you've been with us through this whole breakdown, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. Your support keeps Fast News F1 growing and helps us bring you the stories that really matter. Not just the headlines, but the truth behind them. Because in Formula One, trust is just as important as speed. And for Ferrari, this might be the lesson that finally changes everything.